I was putting a lot of energy into resisting putting myself down for the decisions I had made around having a son. And then also fighting with that of like, I don't regret anything because I love him so much and he's so amazing. Just grappling with that dissonance, but also just trusting that, like, keep lying on the floor, keep going for walks, keep feeling your breath massage you from the inside. I know and I trust that is going to guide me to where I need to be. And that's all I had to focus on.
Welcome to Worthy Mother Podcast. I'm your host, Emily Hardy, a mom of two on a mission to help moms everywhere feel less alone. This is not a parenting podcast. Instead, it's a space for pushing back against societal expectations of perfection and embracing self-compassion in your motherhood journey. Let's get into it. Welcome to Worthy Mother Podcast. Motherhood is hard, especially when the life factors outside of that role throw us for a loop. How do we stay grounded when things get particularly difficult? Joining us this week to share her own story of healing through the mind-body connection and how she grounded herself after a rough start to her motherhood journey is Jocelyn Diles. Jocelyn, welcome to Worthy Mother Podcast. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself, kind of set the stage?
Yeah, so I am a single mama with an 18-month boy, and I live in Boulder, Colorado. I'm a women's embodiment coach, and also I would say someone who's lived a really creative life. I've made a lot of very courageous decisions that a lot of people would say are a bit crazy, but I have never been the kind of person that can just sit with the way life is supposed to be. Like after I finished high school and I was in college and working, I remember talking to a friend being like, is this really it? Like we were in school for 12 years and now we're just figuring out what we want to do to work for the rest of our lives. Like this can't be it. And so I started traveling and backpacking and I just, every desire I have is way out of the box.
I love hearing that. The way you said that, I think, is relatable to so many women, so many moms. And oftentimes we don't maybe have that epiphany as early, like, in the early 20s or in the late teens, early 20s, where it's like, I'm going to kind of not do things the way that it's prescribed to do things. A lot of times, maybe you have those feelings or maybe not, but it's later on down the road where it's like, is this really what we've been working towards? Do I really want to do things the way that society and everyone has told me to do things? And that can be a really complex question to ask yourself when you are married with kids or whatever it is. And so I think it can be helpful to talk to somebody who like had that realization somewhat early in the experience. So, before we dive into this conversation completely, I want to ask you specifically about the work you do supporting women with embodiment work, the mind body connection. What does that mean?
Embodiment is feeling your body, being connected to your body, and using that to guide you in your relationships, in your decisions, in how you move through the world. And so we're a very logical, mental driven society. And that's what we're taught in school. We're not taught about the body at all, especially for women. You know, we hit puberty and then we change. We don't know why we feel a certain way. And so we start making up stories. And that's where the whole story thing starts, right? When I was a kid, I was a happy-go-lucky kid until puberty hit. And then I didn't have anyone that I could trust to talk to about what was happening in my body. Embodiment starts with, in a perfect world, teaching girls about their menstrual cycle. You have 4 different seasons in your menstrual cycle, and knowing about each season is going to help you connect to your body because when you're menstruating, you can listen to your body say, hey, I need you to lay down and take it easy, not be social, not expect anything of yourself, maybe journal, see what you're about. When you're in your follicular phase coming out of your menstrual cycle, it's like, hey, you can like go work out. You're super strong, get social, start doing creative projects, be inspired, right? Like we use that to guide us in our life. And so, like in a perfect world, that's where it would start because then we would grow up into women knowing that, like, my body is so powerful and so intelligent that my brain has really wonderful functions, but listening to my body be the guide, listening to my heart, listening to my womb, because our womb has power. I mean, any mother knows that. And being able to listen to that and trust it and guiding you through life, which seems so counterintuitive for someone who doesn't have this relationship. But for someone who's gone from not having that relationship to having that relationship, I can tell you it is life changing. It changes every relationship in your life.
That's incredible. Like the connection, the relationship with self, and the impact that has then on all our other relationships with people, with experiences, like how true that is, how powerful that is.
Yeah, your relationship to the world, even to nature. We can live in two completely different
Mhm.
worlds when we're connected to our body.
So before becoming a mom, you were doing embodiment work. Can you tell me about that work you were doing and just maybe the impact it had on your life in that period?
Yeah, I got into the embodiment work because I was a massage therapist. I got into massage therapy because I had hiked the Appalachian Trail and we talked a lot about pain, and I realized I was fascinated with pain and our experience with the body. And so I became a massage therapist, but doing massage brought out all of my issues and things that were hiding in my body. I had already been dealing with back stuff and knee pain from hiking the Appalachian Trail and just from being an athlete. I was a gymnast for 14 years, and so that pretty much messed up my back. But as I was doing massage, I'm giving people massage and I'm learning about their bodies and their relationship to the body and the mind body connection, but also all of this chronic pain was coming up for me. I had impingement in both of my shoulders, and that was diagnosed. But then I was getting these back spasms that were coming out of nowhere, and I had this random hip pain that was not diagnosed. I got two x-rays, two MRIs, and my doctor was like, "We can keep trying to do different types of scans, but I don't see any point because you have a perfectly healthy hip." But I was like at a 10 in pain. And so this was what got me into the embodiment work because like the therapy I was doing, like nothing was actually helping me come to the point where I could fully love myself and be fully present in this world. I had all of these issues with my self-worth and feeling like I shouldn't be existing in the world and being really attached to being an alien on this planet and doing the work to connect to my body, to connect to the experience of being human, to connect to this pain and asking it to tell me what it needed was life-changing. It feels so woo-woo to be like, yeah, I had to make friends with this pain and figure out what it wanted because there were no other options. And I've even seen like on Instagram, people post where it's like, it's woo-woo until you realize it's your only option and that's the thing that heals you. Yeah, so it healed me. It healed my relationship to myself. It's what helped me learn how to love myself. Because, like you see all these things and books and all this stuff about how to learn how to love yourself, but I still felt disconnected. So it was coming to terms with I am a human and I have this body that is moving me around in the world. And I can actually rely on the body to guide me through life. And that works.
Yeah. Yeah. What like an incredible journey to go on and have it work in that way where it's like going from a place of not feeling the self-worth, really feeling disconnected from yourself and from the experience of existing in this world to like it's tuning into the inside that can allow you then to connect to the outside in a way that feels doable. It feels like I can do this. I can be resilient in life, and that's important. So, as you became a mom, can you tell us about what that journey has looked like for you? I know there's been a lot of trials and tribulations in that journey, and I think it can be helpful to set the stage of that and hear how the work you did prior to that maybe helped you through that.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the embodiment work that I did, I swear by is the thing that helped me stay strong and stable and resilient through all of it. So I had gone to Guatemala a few years before and I got pregnant on purpose. I was dating a guy. I really wanted a baby. He really wanted a baby. I was a little bit out of my mind because I had lost my dog after 14 years. Like I had to put him down and I kind of lost my ability to navigate life without him. So I was like, give me a baby. So I got pregnant. I came back to the United States so that I could birth my baby the way that I wanted to, which was a home birth. And I met this random family that let me live in their garden shed in my last trimester of pregnancy. And then when I went into labor, lucky enough, they were going out of town for the week to go to camp. So I was able to birth in their house because I was going to birth in the garden shed. So for the first 4 months of my son's life, we were living in a tiny garden shed in their backyard in Colorado. And then the winter was coming, and so we had to leave. So we went back to Guatemala. And it was actually really nice living in their garden shed because the family was so supportive and they were really helpful. Like when I was cooking, the kids would play with my son and they would help if he was crying a lot. I'm so grateful for this family. They were like, godsend. So we went back to Guatemala, which was a 30-hour trip to get to his dad. That was hard enough. And I get there and he's just telling me about all the time he's been working, trying to put the tiles on the floor, trying to like put his house together because he lived with a house that was just like a cement structure. There was nothing inside. And the whole time I was gone, I was like, you need to put tiles on the floor. You need to build a kitchen. You need to make this house a livable house for our child, for a baby. And he didn't do it until the very last week. So I get there and I'm so tired. And that was how he set the stage for the trip. And I was there for 2 months and it was awful. It was so hard because I thought I was going to have help from the dad. I thought I was going to have help from his family. They all live on the same compound. But what happened was there were four other moms that had babies, and their family were helping them, and there was no one available to help me. And his dad decided to work more than I'd ever seen him work in our relationship. And so he was gone all day, every day. And my son is not the easiest. He needs to be held all the time. And so I ended up getting tendonitis in my thumb. I could barely hold him. My rage was just out of control. And I got depressed. On Christmas, he had a fever, and his dad was wasted. And in Guatemala, they have these really, really loud firecrackers that don't make any lights, they're just sound. And so that was going on all day. And it was basically like the worst Christmas of my life, the most stressed I've ever been. And I completely lost all confidence in being a mom. Everybody was telling me I was doing everything wrong. And his dad was doubting everything I was doing. He never standing up for me. And I was like, I've got to get out of here because I can't be the mother I know I can be to my child while being in this situation. And I'm an older mom. I was 39 at the time. I was so confident in being the mother I knew I could be. And I was like, I don't even recognize myself right now. I cannot stay here. And so I left. And this is part of the reason why I don't talk to my mom or my sister or my brother, anyone in my family anymore, because they're mad at me for taking my son away from his dad and for not staying where I apparently had help. And so my aunt in Australia decided to help me out, even though I hardly knew her. I'd met her only a few times in my life, and she bought me a ticket to Australia. We stayed with her for 5 weeks, and that was amazing because she was able to take my son for like an hour a day so I could take a nap or just like get my brain working again. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, okay, I think I might be starting to come out of my postpartum a little bit. And she lived right next to the ocean. So we would go for walks on the ocean every day, and it was so refreshing. And then we flew to the Central Coast to stay with my cousin, and we stayed with her for 5 weeks. And then we stayed in a house sit for 5 weeks. And then my son's visa ran out. And so we had to go back to the United States. And I didn't have any money. I had run out of money because I wasn't able to work and I'd spent all my savings. And so then we became homeless. And I was staying in pet sits, which were lasting, a week here and there. So we were moving every week until I was able to secure housing 3 months later. Once I got into housing, I could finally settle my nervous system and start to really focus on getting back to work and taking care of my family. So the first year of his life, we lived in 14 different places and three different countries. And um, it was really hard. But I would say that I was consistent in all of my embodiment practices through all of it. And the most consistent in like the easiest practices, right?
Yeah.
Like I wasn't doing all of these like, oh, you have to do this breath work and this and that. Like I would lay on the floor at the end of the day. And that's the one thing I suggest to everybody I know is like at the end of the day, lay on the floor and put your arms out like a T. Like that's it. Like this, that is what saved me and my son's life is
Yeah.
having that and just feeling my breath. And if I didn't have that, I mean, I don't know what would have happened to us.
Yeah. There's a few things that just come forward for me. One is the way that as mothers, we do rely on other people. We have to because there's no way to do it completely alone. Like you need support, even if you don't have support, right?
Yeah.
We all need support. We need community. And I think it's interesting there, that piece of like where you were when your child was born was not necessarily like this ideal situation. It wasn't like you had it all and family to help, but you had people who did give you a little bit of that village, right?
Oh,
And to
yeah.
then go to the people who are supposed to be that support for you. You think, well, you're the father of my child that I chose to have a child with, and where's the support? And there's the extended family. Where's the support? And how it doesn't always, like, we don't always get that support in the way that we need it. And I just
Right.
think that's a really important piece there is like, just because you're not getting it doesn't mean you don't need it.
Right.
And every mom needs to hear that, especially if you've never had the support. If you've really been doing it alone and you don't know what that can look like, not being too hard on yourself then when you're not able to do it all, because nobody can. We all need that support. We need our village. There's a reason we say it takes a village, right? It's not just
Yeah.
for like raising our child, it's for getting that hour to yourself. It's for being able to like when you're so overwhelmed by the firecrackers and your child with the fever and it feels crushing to be able to just have somebody to help with your kid or to talk to, whatever it is. But in those moments where you didn't have support, and really, I imagine we're just getting by, like survival mode in a lot of that. It's really all you can do, right? To like, we need the place to live. We need to kind of get through this period, having that connection to self and
Yeah.
being able to say, all I can do is lay on the floor and connect inward, but that's going to get me through to the next day.
Yeah.
And I need that right now. And this isn't going to be sustainable long term. I need to, there needs to be other movement in my life to get that help, to get that support, to get the stable place to live. But if I'm connecting inward, it does make a difference. And I think that's really a powerful illustration of that. I'm curious when you did kind of start to find that stability again and, secure housing and have a place that was your own and start to feel maybe more like things weren't so completely chaotic because I can only imagine like moving all the time did feel completely chaotic. Was it hard to move back to a place of like the true embodiment work that you had been doing prior and to really connect inward with yourself? Or because you'd been consistent all along in the ways that you could, was it easier?
I think it was easier compared to maybe someone who wasn't doing those practices before because I at least had somewhere to start and I trusted myself. And I know like I've struggled with depression on and off throughout the years. And I know that like I don't have to put pressure on myself. I know what works, and I trust that I eventually will get back into the flow. And so when I went into it, I was like, I'm going to give myself a month just to settle in and not have any, well, I don't have any expectations for myself ever. I've stopped doing that because I know that doesn't get us anywhere. But it was more of like, okay, I'm going to give myself a month just to get back into the flow and to focus on my son because this has probably been traumatic for him. And I need to like check our relationship. And so I was able to do that. And it did take me some time to really be able to get to a place where I was thriving because I was so focused on building my business, getting my community set up, finding people to, be around, making time for all of that, that I was noticing I was putting a lot of energy into being gentle on myself, on my negative self-talk, on, just soothing myself for where I had been for the loss of my relationship with my mom and my sister. I blogged about that so I could do some emotional processing around what happened. And it just felt like I was putting a lot of energy into resisting putting myself down for the decisions I had made around having a son. And then also fighting with that of like, I don't regret anything because I love him so much and he's so amazing. Just grappling with that dissonance, but also just trusting that, like, keep lying on the floor. Keep going for walks. Keep feeling your breath massage you from the inside. I know and I trust that is going to guide me to where I need to be. And that's all I had to focus on. And I knew everything else would come back together, and it did. And I found the right people to help me get back into a place of feeling good, to get back to prioritizing different types of thoughts, more positive, more feeling good thoughts, more affirmations that felt more in alignment with where I wanted to go. And so that's the other thing too, is I see a lot of moms put so much pressure on themselves to be a certain way or to do things a certain way or to change, where it's like if you just come into your body and connect with your body, it will get you there. You don't have to do the mental effort. You can just come to your heart and ask your heart to eventually get you there if you just speak your desires to your heart and you let your heart soften your body. And that is my saving grace. And that is always what I come back to trusting.
Can you paint a picture for us of what that like actually looks like for somebody who maybe doesn't have that experience of grounding yourself in the body, grounding yourself in the breath, and it does feel like you're talking about like the energy it takes for all the mind stuff, right? Of like I
Yeah.
don't regret this, but I'm also struggling with this decision. Like it is a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us, like, I know I go to therapy and my therapist will talk about it sometimes of like, it's great that you see that and you're logically thinking about this, but maybe you just need to like feel it. And I'm like, oh, yeah, maybe. Like we get stuck in that place of trying to like make it make sense.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of us have that deep understanding of what it means to like rely on the body for that kind of healing. So can you just like lay that out for us?
Yeah. So for one, crying has to be a part of it because when we're in our heads, our body is tense and we
Hmm.
need to release it. Exercise is also really great, but there's like, we're so protected, especially women. I mean, all of us, all humans, but like women, we're so good at protecting ourselves that we don't even realize we're doing it until our kid starts having crazy tantrums for no reason. And it's like, what could it be? Oh, it's me, right? But then it's like, well, I don't know how to fix it. And so now, and then anyway, so for me, I watch Disney movies because for some reason every Disney movie has me ending in like tears of joy. So I would say, like, if you don't know how to cry, which I had to learn how to cry years ago, watch some kind of movie or something that's going to get you crying
Hmm.
and just get comfortable with it and like set the intention of like, okay, it's okay for me to cry. It's safe. I'm gonna create a container where I'm allowed to do this. Maybe I do it when, in the middle of the night when everyone's sleeping and I put headphones on, but like create that space and then really feel your body crying and get comfortable with like this is what release feels like. This is what it feels like for energy to move through my body and out. Because then when you do these practices like laying on the floor, and I say lay on the floor with your arms out like this or with your arms hands clasped behind your head because that opens your heart. And a lot of times, like if you're laying on the floor and you listen to music that feels really good, you might also start crying. But that can feel really unsafe for a lot of people because your heart is open. And
Hmm.
so it's a gentle practice of like doing it in steps and not setting any expectations for yourself and just being curious about what happens. And also knowing that whatever thoughts come up around what's happening in your body don't mean anything. And you can just let them go because we're so programmed to try to figure it out that every thought has meaning.
Hmm.
But when we're working with the body and we're practicing releasing emotions and feelings and energy, we have to really understand that the thoughts are just what we familiarize that feeling with. And we are programmed to put a story to each feeling. And so that's a really hard practice. But that's why I call it a practice because you are always working on it. You're
Yeah.
never going to be perfect at it.
Yeah. We talk a lot on this podcast about the expectations and messages that we all take in from society, regardless of whether you're like, I subscribe to that or not. Like, we're all taking these things in, and it does inform our thoughts. Like, it will. And so, knowing that in any practice you're doing where the goal is to kind of separate you from the thoughts, right? Because the thoughts are
Yeah.
not you, that will be challenging and it will be ongoing. And
Yeah.
you can get to a place where it's more automatic and a lot less effort, but it's always an ongoing process because it's ongoing the messages we're getting. It's ongoing the
Yeah.
pressure we're getting. Our children are changing. So we are facing new experiences in motherhood and new struggles and new like really hard struggles sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not just some oh, I'm a mom, so this gets easier. No, that's not how it works. It can get a lot harder too, right? And so I think that's an important reminder because it can be so automatic to get kind of caught up in those thoughts. I think the idea of crying, like just letting it out, just giving yourself that space to release is really powerful. I know for me, like I will cry about anything to anyone. That's something that like growing up I was very much shamed for. Like being called a
Yeah.
crybaby and things like that. And I'm proud of myself because I think I've reclaimed that in adulthood. But
Yeah.
that wasn't necessarily easy. There's people who don't like that and it makes them uncomfortable and then that makes me uncomfortable, right? But getting to that place to be able to like release through the tears
Yeah.
is huge. And I love how you've laid that out, how connected that is to then like being able to go inward and feel what it is in your body and how that relates, like how the release relates to all of that.
Yeah, and just like sticking with the sensation, like for a long time, I couldn't feel my heart. It's like, oh, I can feel my heart beat because I'm
Yeah.
really good at meditating. I'm really good at meditating, right? Like I can sit still and be quiet and feel sensations in my body, but I don't know what to do with them. But like when I can take that practice into crying, it's like, oh, now I feel my heart. I feel my love. I feel fear, but
Hmm.
I feel the love that's in fear. And being a mom is so freaking scary, especially being a single mom, because I'm like, anything that goes wrong with my son, it is all on me. But like, I think that's every mom anyway. And it's scary. And there's so many fears. But underneath that, there's so much love. If we can access that and just hold on to that,
Yeah.
then I think it's so powerful.
It's almost like the fear up here in our brains, the fear
Yeah.
and the anxiety and the like overwhelm and the constant like chatter about what we're going to do wrong or what we have done wrong and what could go wrong and all these things. It's different than the fear like in our hearts. It's different than the fear of like, this means a lot. This
Yeah.
experience of raising our children means a lot. And there's so much love in there. And it's like, of course it's scary. We don't
Yeah.
have to get so caught up in like all of the this and this and this and this that makes it so that it's all overwhelming. It's like, no, we can kind of tap into that, like, yes, this is the experience that we're having and it's complex and like it's just a different way of experiencing the fear and the love and all the things that's less like paralyzing.
Yeah. And then also like giving ourselves credit for like, gosh, it's so courageous to be a mom. So courageous. Because especially if you have more than one kid, because it's like, you know what you're getting into this time and you have another one. Right. And like being able to just say, I am so courageous and I have so much love and I'm so proud of myself because I'm doing it.
Hmm.
And I think when we can really feel that, and that's why embodiment is so important to be able to feel all of the love that we have as moms and how powerful we are. I carried this being for 4 months, 9 months. I mean, even if you didn't, if you adopted, right? But like I took on this person and I'm raising them and I am loving them. And like the love is so overwhelming, it causes me fear. But I think the reason why it causes us fear is because we have this protection that doesn't allow our love to expand as great as it can. And so we're like, no, I can't love this much. But when we are in our bodies and we feel good in our bodies and we have the practices that can allow our breath to move through our bodies to massage us from the inside and allow us to expand, it feels less scary and it feels more just joyful and satisfying and
Yeah.
fulfilling.
Yeah. That's really a powerful illustration of it. So, one thing that I'm curious your thoughts on is the need, I talked about it a little bit, but the need for external support versus that internal support that we can give ourselves.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
It's so hard to ask for help, especially for moms. And we take this from just being women into motherhood. Like I've had so many conversations with friends before I had kids that were just women that were like, I can't ask for help. And it gets in the way of dating because guys, they want to help and, all these things. And then we become mothers and it's like, no, I can do it all. And I see people offer mothers help and they say, no, I got it. It's okay. And then like one day, this woman asked me if I needed help. And I've gotten so used to asking for help because had to. I was in a position where it wasn't an option. But I was like, I had my son sleeping on my boob and a grocery bag. And she was like, do you need help? And I put my bag down. I was like, yes, thank you. Can you pick this up? And she was like, oh my gosh, really? You want help? I was like, yes, thank you. Because she's like, no one ever accepts it.
Yeah.
And I think it's really humbling to ask for help because we are not raised in a village type of mentality. We are raised to be isolated and we are expected to be able to do everything, the independent woman. And so I think when we feel like we have to ask for help or even accept help, there's this sensation of failure that we're not good enough, especially if we see a mom who looks like she's doing it all, but we also don't know what she feels like on the inside. But when we get comfortable asking for help, and it's a practice, right? It's like a muscle that you have to flex over and over and over again. I think that helps us feel closer to our hearts. I think it helps lessen the fear. It helps us know we're not alone. It helps us feel more whole and connected to other people. It's easier to give ourselves more credit because we're not feeling isolated. I think it makes us more expansive when we can ask for help. And so that's really important. And also for our kids, because then we can raise them with the mentality that like we don't have to do things on our own. We model it for them.
It's like a beautiful thing to leave them with. That piece of like people want to help. Like we want to like support people as humans. That connection's really important. And when we are conditioned to like isolate and not ask for help, it impacts us, but it also impacts other people in a cultural sense. And so when we can ask for help, when we can accept help, there's so much more that can happen in a good way when we are supporting one another. Like you can see that. I think everybody can probably picture something in their life when you're supporting somebody or when you're working in collaboration or community, better things can happen. And I think that
Yeah.
really is true just of like culture in general, right? Like society in general,
Yeah.
when we are connected, when we are supporting one another, and that's just kind of the norm. It's a different, it's a different vibe. It's a different reality. Like what we're able to accomplish is accomplished in a variety of ways, right? Is a lot better.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. Like you said it right on. People want to help. They
Mhm.
just don't know how. Like I wish I knew how to help my friends who had kids before me. Like I was such a terrible friend because I didn't know how to help them, but they also didn't ask for help.
Mhm.
And so we do make the society better by asking for help.
Yeah, in a
Yeah,
big
you're
way.
right.
So I always end these episodes in the same way, and that is asking about self-care because I think, first of all, the conversation about self-care is out in the world in a lot of ways, and it can be really just a weird conversation for a lot of moms. But foundationally, caring for ourselves, taking care of our needs is like the most crucial thing when it comes to existing in the world as anyone, but particularly as a mother who has so much responsibility for this other life, right? And so
Yeah.
I would love to know, I know we've talked a lot about the practices that you do, but how do you take care of yourself? And just do you have any advice for moms to make sure that they're also caring for themselves regularly?
Yeah. So the practices that I always suggest are one, taking off your bra when you're at home, giving yourself regular breast massages. Like my clients, they'll do it every day because they start doing it and they love it. You can do it in the shower, you can do it right when you take your bra off, but when you're at home, you don't need to have a bra on unless it's really uncomfortable for you to wear a bra, but that's different. But breast massage is one because it loosens the fascia around your chest. It opens up your chest and it opens up your heart. And surprisingly, this has a huge impact on how you move around through the world. So there's that laying on the floor with your arms out in a T every night before bed. And everybody has time to do this because you do it before you go to bed. Unless you're about to pass out, then that's different. Getting outside, if it's warm enough, getting outside with your shoes off and feeling the ground, even if it's like 5 minutes, but going outside and really enjoying the fresh air and looking at a tree or finding something beautiful and enjoying that something beautiful. And when you're at home, taking your shoes off, being barefoot, letting your feet be free because there are so many nerve endings in our feet and muscles in our feet that actually impact our entire posture. And our posture impacts the way we feel, and the way we feel impacts our thoughts. So, being barefoot as much as possible, at least at home, being braless as much as possible, at least at home, lying on the floor, and setting reminders for yourself to feel your breath. The way I do my breath practices is always in an invitation. So when it's like, oh, I want to feel my breath right now, rather than taking a deep breath, inviting, using the energy of like thinking of the person you love most in the world or the people, your kid, like you're going to embrace them, like you're like inviting them to come in and hug you, using that energy of invitation to invite the breath in to fill you and just noticing where it fills you, not expecting it to fill you all the way, but just feeling it in that way can feel so good. And with the energy of like, I want you to fill me. I love you. And those things alone, like when I don't have time, those are the things that get me through. And I always get back to where I want to be, even if I'm in dips, by having those. Although I will say, if you're breastfeeding, breast massage doesn't feel that great.
Yeah, I could see that.
Like, I tried. I was like, yeah, no.
It's a different thing.
Yeah, like, don't do it if you're breastfeeding, but everything else. And a gratitude practice every day. Gratitude, writing what you're grateful for, what you appreciate in life.
I love that. As you were talking about the breath and the inviting in, I like felt my breath change. I'm just imagining a mom listening to this driving their kids to school or whatever it
Yeah.
is and just feeling that relaxation if you're really tuned into that. And if you weren't, like rewind a few minutes, I felt my body like just I got more in tune with my breath and it's amazing how it really is just like that intention. You don't even have to be like thinking intentionally of like I'm
Right.
gonna do this, but when you just kind of bring awareness to the breath, it's like, whoa.
Yeah. Feels really good.
Yes. And a breast massage. I've actually like never heard that. I love asking this question, and there's a lot of themes that come up, going on walks, and everyone has something different to say, and it means something different. And I think it's super impactful to hear similar practices from different people. But like every once in a while, there's something like, whoa, that has never crossed my mind. So
Yeah.
it's a good one. I'm gonna take that with me.
Nice.
Jocelyn, how can any mom out there find you, connect with you, learn more about you and the work you do?
I have an Instagram. That's probably the place where I'm the most active right now, at Jocelyn Diles. I also have a website. I'm currently working on a couple courses, so those should be out by the end of this month. And I do have a YouTube video where I have some self-care practices. A lot of them are foam rolling videos I made during COVID when I was a massage therapist, which I think are great. You should check those out.
Yeah, all the like releasing the tension is
Yeah.
a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, we'll have all of that linked in the show notes. Jocelyn, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your story with us and also giving us so much actionable advice for how we can kind of start to tap into the body, learn a little bit more about embodiment in our own lives. Really great stuff.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning in. We will be back next week with another episode of Worthy Mother Podcast. You are worthy, Mama.